Are you a rider or a driver? Some people ride and some people drive. What's the difference and which is better? Someone I respect once said, "You'll never know what it's like to be a true leader until you have to make payroll." I think that's partially true. There's a lot to be said for having the ultimate responsibility in a business, and all of us could be better leaders by having a stronger results focused. There should be no controversy in that statement. I've had jobs where I could hide out for long periods of time, not really accountable for any results. As a matter of fact, one of the highest paying jobs I ever had was like this. The game in this job wasn't to produce results that actually mattered to the business, but to convince the people around you that your job was very important. If you've ever worked at an enterprise-sized company, you may have experienced this yourself. You can make a lot of money at certain jobs in these companies, and your main job is to get along with the people you work with. As for me, I got bored because I knew my job didn't really matter, even though I was making more money than I had ever made before. Once I got bored, honestly, I stopped getting along with the people I worked with. A job like this is kind of like school. You show up, you sit in your seat, you do your assigned work, and it's all good. You can be graded on a rubric of things that you're supposed to do, and you usually have a pretty good sense for how you're doing. Most people in these roles don't spend a lot of time worrying about how the company is doing in their market, how healthy the finances of the company are, or anything like that. They just trust that the company is going to be there, so they'll have a job, get a paycheck, and hopefully enjoy what they do. These are the people who are absolutely shocked when layoffs happen because they were doing their job. It's not fair that they don't have a job when they were doing a good job. Now think rider versus driver, which I mentioned at the beginning. Do you know what each of these mean yet? Don't jump to conclusions because you'll probably be wrong. Here's the problem with relying on a company like this, and I believe this problem is getting worse with each generation in our advanced society. We have far too much trust in the stability of the institutions in our world. We're trained from a young age to go to school and fit into this system. A big part of our lives are governed by that institution. As we grow older, we're told to be good inside this system so we can move on to the second phase of this system, which is getting a job at a good company for a good paycheck. When any of these institutions fail, we're shocked, and we feel like somebody somewhere must have done something very wrong because these kinds of things should never happen. We fundamentally believe that these institutions are unshakable. As we come to increasingly trust in these institutions, we're setting ourselves up for more and more of these shocking failures because there's never been a time in the history of our modern world where these institutions were more vulnerable than they are today. Some people are really good at working within this system, and that's a very valuable skill. For example, I have a nephew who decided he wanted to graduate from high school a year early and go on his mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The sport he had played in high school had become unavailable to him, and he realized that he would just be wasting time spending another year in high school. When he made this decision, he was just a couple of months away from the end of his junior year. So he did the coursework for his entire senior year during the last few weeks of his junior year, and he graduated in 3 years. For most people, the possibility of doing what my nephew did wouldn't have even crossed their minds. My nephew is extremely good at working in the system. Another nephew of mine from the same family didn't really finish high school. He's very bright and a very talented kid, but he didn't think school was for him, and he just couldn't imagine spending another year in school to get a diploma. One of my kids is actually just like that too. People like this have to make their own way in the world. They don't want to ride on someone else's bus. Some of you are still waiting for the answer to the question I posed at the beginning. Some people ride and some people drive. What's the difference and which is better? You may be thinking that in the system equals ride and out of the system equals drive. Not so fast. There's more to unpack here. If we continue to look at people outside of this system, they're generally motivated by something different. It might be that they don't like the limited nature of life inside the system, the cap on how much money you can make, the limits on what you do and how you do it, the constraints on how you spend your time, and maybe the deepest one of all, the constraints on how you use your talents and fulfill your potential. They want these limits removed, even though it means exposure to dangers that usually don't exist inside the protecting walls of those limits. These people become entrepreneurs. The irony is that so many entrepreneurs don't have time freedom, don't make more money than successful people who work inside the system in their same space and often get stuck doing things that they don't want to do because that work just has to be done. This isn't inevitable, but it's what happens to most entrepreneurs. So in my case, I was really good in the system, sometimes. Actually, I'm not even sure where I fit in here, which is probably why I've been thinking about this. I was not a good student in middle school and high school. I went on my own mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you don't know what this is, it's a 2-year commitment away from home where you spend 6+ days a week teaching people about the gospel of Jesus Christ in their homes. It's a formative experience, and I would not be the person I am today without it. My mission was in the West Indies, which are some small islands and countries in the Southern Caribbean. After that experience, I came back and I worked really well within the system. I got a bachelor's degree and 2 master's degree, and I actually really loved school, so much that I thought of being a professor. But I was not happy working at a job inside the system, and I left the system twice before this time to work outside. The first time just a little over 2 years after graduating from college. Now, I reject the idea that you were born to be one or the other. You may have attributes that are more serviceable inside the system or out, but there aren't just 2 types of people. So here's the answer to the question I posed at the beginning of the show. Are you a rider or a driver? What's the difference and which is better? Well, you're a rider if you just want to let an institution or other people have the ultimate responsibility for your financial destiny, putting guardrails on what you achieve and to some degree who you become, at least at work. If you're content to let your company provide a paycheck, give you work that you hope is interesting and meaningful, and provide stability in your life, you're a rider. You're a driver if you wake up each day feeling like there's no stability but that which you can create for yourself and maybe for others too. That is the mentality that makes you a driver. You can be a rider as an entrepreneur, and you can be a driver as an employee inside the system. It's not a job title, it's an orientation with the world around you. And if you see yourself as responsible for producing results and you believe those results are necessary for you and others to thrive, then you're a driver. If you rely on others to produce those results, you're a rider. Both are okay. You might think, man, a company that was made up of all drivers would be unstoppable. That company would actually fall apart long before it ever became successful. The world and every organization inside of it needs both types of people. And almost all of us will be in both of these roles at some point in our lives. It's really useful to think about which one you are right now and which one you'd like to be. You're not born as one or the other, and you can develop the mindset and the skills to switch if you don't like what you're doing right now. I hope you've enjoyed this topic. Smash the like button, or if you're listening to the audio of this, rate it 5 stars and subscribe and share. And we'll see you back here next time.